Welcome. This is A Course in Miracles, Palm Beach Study Group for Thursday, March 25th, 2021. We're going to review the last paragraph that we read last week because we really didn't get a chance to discuss it. So we're on page 23. We're in chapter 2, section 4, healing and release from fear. And we're on paragraph 3. Only the mind can create because spirit has already been created, and the body is a learning device for the mind. Learning devices are not lessons in themselves. Their purpose is merely to facilitate learning. The worst a faulty use of a learning device can do is to fail to facilitate learning. It has no power in itself to introduce actual learning errors. The body, if properly understood, shares the invulnerability of the atonement to two-edged application. This is not because the body is a miracle, but because it is not inherently open to misinterpretation. The body is merely part of your experience in the physical world. Its abilities can be, and frequently are, overvaluated. However, it is almost impossible to deny its existence in this world. Those who do so are engaging in a particularly unworthy form of denial. The term unworthy here implies only that it is not necessary to protect the mind by denying the unmindful. If one denies the unfortunate aspect of the mind's power, one is also denying the power itself. So first I'll ask if there's any questions or comments. Okay, then, so let's kind of go over that. Only the mind can create because spirit has already been created. So spirit is of God, and God created our mind, and the Holy Spirit indwells our mind. And so of the duality that we are of body and mind, and then if you want to add the Trinity, you can say body, mind, and soul. But the mind is the realm of the real, whereas the body is the realm of the unreal. So the mind is the realm of spirit, and the body is the realm of ego. And there's one understanding that all of everything is mind, that mind composes all of eternity, is made up of mind. So only the mind can create. And that's, if you've ever studied any metaphysics and you hear things like thoughts are things, or everything in the physical world is a manifestation of a thought that started in the mind. And so, in a way, you could say that we are the manifestation of God's thought. He thought, let there be the sun, and there was, and that's who we are. So everything starts with the thought. And in very practical terms, even in the ego world, I mean, let's face it, we're using these computers or phones or tablets, whatever. They would not exist in the physical if they hadn't started in somebody's mind. The thought had to occur first. So then it says the body is a learning device for the mind. So the body is just a learning device. It has no ability to create in and of itself. It's a learning device because as we venture through and live in this ego world and all of the different situations and interpersonal relationships and everything that we have that we encounter, all of the decisions that we need to make as we go through daily life, year after year, we're learning lessons, or we should be. Some people don't learn anything no matter how long they're here, but ideally, we're learning as we go along. So the body is a learning device for the mind. Learning devices are not lessons in themselves. The lesson is not in the body. Their purpose, meaning the body's purpose, is merely to facilitate learning. So our physical world and the lives that we live in the physical world, what are you here for? And you've heard it said maybe in the past that, oh, the whole world is just a big school, that we're all in school. Well, that's true. We're all, the purpose of the physical world is to facilitate learning. The worst a faulty use of learning device can do is fail to facilitate learning. So if we use the body in a false way, however you want to interpret that, the worst that it can do is fail to facilitate learning. You don't learn anything. If you I don't know, abuse it, what have you, and I guess eventually you can get a learning out of that. Some people do anyway. They go to recovery and what have you, but that's the worst. It says the worst that a faulty use of a learning device, the body, is fail to facilitate learning. It has no power in itself to introduce actual learning errors. The body has no power in itself to introduce learning errors. The body, if properly understood, shares the invulnerability of the atonement to two-edged application. Well, we talked earlier about the atonement is not a two-edged sword. It doesn't cut both ways like the ego does. The ego will cut you coming and going. The ego will cut you right and left, up and down, quarter you. But the atonement, the soul, the spirit's facilitating of forgiveness and the miracle is not a two-edged sword. And so the body, it says, it shares that invulnerability of the atonement. This is not because the body is a miracle, but because it is inherently open to misinterpretation. I mean, see, so many people think that their bodies are real and don't understand that their body's just an illusion. And so many people invest so much in their bodies, which is as the ego would have it. And last week I mentioned how the ego will invest so much in the body in trying to make you believe that the body's real, that even after the body you have out now wears out, it reincarnates you so you get another body. So you can start all over again, investing in the body. But that's a misinterpretation of the body. The body is just an illusion. The body is merely part of your experience in the physical world. That's it. It's part of the experience. In and of itself, it doesn't really have all that much meaning. It can't create like the mind can. Oh yeah, it can jump up and down and roll around, but you know, it's just merely a part of your experience in the physical world. Its abilities can be and frequently are over evaluated. We put way too much into the body. We give it way too much power. However, it is almost impossible to deny its existence in this world. Yes, it is. It's very powerful in the ego world. It's very hard to deny, especially when the body starts aching and paining and giving you trouble and starts growing old and all of the things. It's very, and the ego has this all set up to work this way so that it keeps the person involved in their bodies. So it's impossible to deny its existence in the world. Those who do so are engaging in a particularly unworthy form of denial. So although you can understand that your body is an illusion, that does not mean that you should deny your body's needs. While you're in the physical world, and there's some teachings that say, well, your body is a temple. We still need to care for our bodies and brush our teeth and take our showers and eat well and exercise and do whatever we can, because it would be a particularly unworthy form of denial to deny the existence of the body. That's not teaching us anything. But in our mind, we should understand that ultimately the body and all of the physical universe is an illusion. The term unworthy here implies only that it is not necessary to protect the mind by denying the unmindful. We don't need to protect our mind by denying our body. Mind is not going to be affected. Mind is already is what it is, with or without the body. So, we don't have to protect our mind by denying our body. If one denies this unfortunate aspect of the mind's power, one is also denying the power itself. If we're denying that the mind has the ultimate power, then we're denying that power. And that power is the spirit. So to deny the mind is to deny the spirit, and if you want to put it that way. Now, is there any discussion or questions? Yes, Eileen.
What are learning errors?
What are learning errors? All right, let's see, what sentence was that in? Have the number?
Oh, I can't scroll. Okay. It says it has no power in itself to introduce actual learning errors.
Again, can you?
It's number 5.
Oh, okay.
Number 5.
There we go. Now I got it. All right, so let's see. The worst of philosophical learning device it can do is to fail to. So it here is referring to the body. So the body has no power in itself to introduce actual learning errors. Again, that's just a learning error. What is a learning error? To learn the wrong thing.
Okay.
But the body, see, it's saying that the body doesn't have that power. The body doesn't have the power to teach us the wrong thing. You know, the power of the body is very limited, almost non-existent. I mean, the best that it can do is provide a vehicle in which our mind and spirit can walk around on the planet in the third dimension ego illusionary world. But it has no power unto itself. And it can't teach you something wrong. It can't really teach you anything. Does that make sense now?
Yeah.
I have a question or a statement.
Yes.
It kind of applies to this section. Sometimes I have thoughts that somebody's angry with me, and I just talk myself out of it. I use my mind or my spirit and says, they love me and I love them. And it shows that spirit can overtake these false thoughts. These untrue thoughts, or I'm not sure how to label them.
Maybe they're ego thoughts?
Yeah, it could be ego thoughts, Diane was suggesting.
Yeah.
But I say, they're just thoughts, they don't mean anything. They're just thoughts, they don't mean anything. And I've learned to do this, and it's helped me a lot.
Well, you have devised for yourself, from what I can gather, a form of forgiveness procedure in that. So basically, you're forgiving it. However you may express it in words, but you know, there's these negative thoughts, fear thoughts, what have you. But you're forgiving them. You're giving them up. So
Yeah, I'm letting it go.
yeah, you're letting it go. So that's the whole lesson of the course is to learn forgiveness. And some people do that differently than other people, but you know, the goal is the same. Whatever works for you works for you.
Oh, John,
Yeah.
I have a question. Okay, on page 23, when you talked about atonement, what does atonement mean exactly?
The ultimate forgiveness. The atonement is the end of the line. When you've gone through the whole process and you've forgiven everything and you're ascending, you're reached nirvana. The atonement is that process of complete forgiveness. That is the miracle.
I was gonna say in Judaism, when they look at the word atonement, they also say at one-ment. So maybe if you're forgiving everything, you're at one with everything.
Well, you are at one with everything anyway, whether you know it or not. But when you've reached the atonement, that becomes real.
Mhm. Um, and then I was wondering about but I guess your thoughts, like for instance, if you're a carpenter, it's your thoughts that have your body make something, which is the creativity, right? So it's still really your thoughts. But how do you know your thoughts aren't connected to your ego?
Oh, some of your thoughts are. Our mind is split between the ego mind and the spirit mind. And
Mhm.
that's what the course is trying to teach you, is how to think with the spirit mind and let go of the ego mind. So ego thoughts are easy to identify. They're thoughts of hate, greed, jealousy, lust, all kinds of anything that's of a negative nature are ego thoughts. Spirit thoughts are thoughts of loving and compassion and sympathy and forgiveness and creativity. I'd say, artists, musicians, poets, carpenters, whatever they're creating. I believe any creativity comes from spirit mind. Of course, when you're creating a nuclear bomb, well, there might be some gray area there. um, is the thing about those people, the physicists and all the scientists and all, I mean, they knew they were creating a bomb, but they thought they were doing it for a good reason because it was World War II and there were two things going on. First of all, they thought that Hitler was very close to getting his own bomb. And secondly, they thought, with the bomb, we can just end this thing. So there was kind of an altruism there. Uh, but many of them, after the fact, um, stood up and said, no, no, no. We know we created this bomb, but we should not use it. So anyway, but the ego mind wanted to say, oh, let's drop a whole bunch of them all over the place. Okay, shall we go on to the next paragraph? This is paragraph 4 now. All material means that you accept as remedies for bodily ills are restatements of magic principles. This is the first step in believing that the body makes its own illness. It is a second misstep to attempt to heal it through non-creative agents. It does not follow, however, that the use of such agents for corrective purposes is evil. Sometimes the illness has a significantly strong hold over the mind to render a person temporarily inaccessible to the atonement. In this case, it may be wise to utilize a compromise approach to mind and body, in which something from the outside is temporarily given healing belief. This is because the last thing that can help the non-right minded or the sick is an increase in fear. They are already in a fear-weakened state. If they are permanently exposed to a miracle, they may be precipitated into panic. This is likely to occur when upside down perception has induced the belief that miracles are frightening. Well, the basic understanding of that is that the mind is the creative influence here. When you're thinking with the ego mind, when you're thinking with fear, hatred, jealousy, what have you, those thoughts create expressions in the physical body, which we wind up calling illness. And people look to doctors and medicine to cure their illness. What they're saying is that, well, that's magic, because you have to believe that is what can cure you. But that's not true. What really can cure you is to change your mind. But many people aren't aware enough to know what it is that they're thinking, because a lot of these thoughts are subconscious, unconscious thoughts of fear and guilt that they don't even realize they have, that are causing the illness situation in the first place. So it's very hard for them to adjust their thinking to be able to cure the illness in their body. And so they look to outside things, to doctors and medicines and what have you, to do the curing for them. And what they're saying is, and that's okay for those of us who, can't get a full grasp and understanding of how to be able to cure ourselves in our own mind. Because if healing miracles were allowed to just happen willy-nilly, that would just frighten people all the more, or could, I mean, there have been healers in the past, and where, they healed someone and then they were called the devil. They were the devil. I mean, I think even there's stories about Jesus, if I remember correctly, having that situation come up. That people, not everybody is on board with receiving miracles.
Or they call them witches.
Or witches, yeah. Or so, like the Indian medicine men. See, the Native Americans were much more tuned in to the spiritual forces, and had their medicine men that would do ceremonies, and yes, they used some herbs, which would be medicine, but a lot of it was connecting with the spirit of the person and trying to relieve what was causing their illness. I believe, I don't know. I think in a past life I was a medicine man, so maybe that's where I'm getting this from. I don't know. So anyway, but yeah, there have been, other saints throughout the centuries and all with prayer. Lots of people believe that prayer can help heal you. Well, again, with prayer, you're using the mind, you're using the spirit, and calling upon the spirit to aid in the healing of the body. Anyone? Well, okay. We got one more paragraph to this chapter. The value of the atonement does not lie in the manner in which it is expressed. In fact, if it is used truly, it will inevitably be expressed in whatever way is most helpful to the receiver. This means that a miracle, to attain its full efficiency, must be expressed in a language that the recipient can understand without fear. This does not necessarily mean that this is the highest level of communication of which he is capable. It does mean, however, that it is the highest level of communication of which he is capable now. The whole aim of the miracle is to rise the level of communication, not to lower it by increasing fear. I don't know that that needs any explanation, but are there any questions, or does anybody want me to go over that paragraph?
It seems that politically and in other ways, people use fear to motivate or to get what they want in life, which is part of their ego.
Yes.
I just thought I would say that. David had something he wanted to say. Hold on.
It was back a little bit. I'm losing my train of thought. Oh, I use food to heal me. I use nature to heal me. Being out in nature, eating foods from nature. I open my heart to love for the healing. It's all part of nature, the connection, the oneness, the atonement. Everything is connected.
Yes. Well, that's very good. Okay, well, we are now into section 5, the function of the miracle worker. Before miracle workers are ready to undertake their function in this world, it is essential that they fully understand the fear of release. Otherwise, they may unwittingly foster the belief that release is imprisonment, a belief that is already very prevalent. The misperception arises in turn from the belief that harm can be limited to the body. That is because of the underlying fear that the mind can hurt itself. None of these errors is meaningful because the miscreations of the mind do not really exist. This recognition is a far better protective device than any form of level confusion, because it introduces correction at the level of the error. It is essential to remember that only the mind can create, and that correction belongs at the thought level. To amplify an earlier statement, spirit is already perfect and therefore does not require correction. The body does not exist except as a learning device for the mind. This learning device is not subject to errors of its own because it cannot create. It is obvious then that inducing the mind to give up its miscreations is the only application of the creative ability that is truly meaningful. Well, Eileen, why don't you, oh my goodness. Well,
John, I've just been putting it in the chat box so Eileen has it as you've been reading.
oh, can you type that?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, I was-
I'm cutting and pasting from the online version.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Helene. Thank
You
you so
are
much.
welcome, Eileen. We got to stick out for us Eanes.
Yeah, because I'm recording here and all, it's not easy for me to go back and forth to copy and paste it like I did the first time. So thank you very much. So that paragraph 1, to get back to that paragraph 1, any discussion on that? Should I go over it?
Yes, please.
All right, let's see what it's saying. Before miracle workers, that be you. I'm sorry, if you're here now, you're being labeled a miracle worker, okay? I dubbed the miracle workers. So there you go. Before miracle workers are ready to understand their function in this world, it is essential that they fully understand the fear of release. So we have, in other words, we just need to be conscious that not everybody is ready to hear this message. There's some people that are still too steeped in fear, just like everybody wasn't ready to hear the witch's message that she could heal the people, and they burned her at the stake. Not everybody is ready. And so we need to understand that the fear of the release of the miracle in the ego world. Otherwise, they may unwittingly foster the belief that release is imprisonment. That it's just the opposite of what it is. A belief that is already very prevalent. And it is prevalent in the ego world, because what does the ego teach us? The ego teaches us that we're guilty as sin because we separated ourselves from God, and now God's mad at us and he's going to punish us. And there's still a lot of people in the world who believe in hell and damnation and sin and all of these negative, fearful things that the ego has fostered upon people. This misperception arises in turn from the belief that harm can be limited to the body. And again, how do they punish people? They take it out on their bodies. They imprison them, they torture them, they burn them at the stake, they take it out on their bodies. This is because of an underlying fear that the mind can hurt itself. None of these errors is meaningful, because the miscreations of the mind do not really exist. And that's where true forgiveness says, I forgive you not because you did anything, but because you're completely innocent. You didn't do anything at all. What you did in the ego world, and that's just an illusion. It didn't really happen. And so the ego mind will think all of these thoughts, but spirit mind is just ready to forgive all of that and say, you only had those thoughts because you didn't understand who you truly were. If you understood that you were truly a child of God and that you were spirit, perfect and whole and innocent, you wouldn't have had those thoughts in the first place. And you know what? None of those thoughts amounted to anything anyway, because they only existed in the illusion world. And that's just going to go poof as soon as you understand who you really are.
I am more than my body. I am spirit.
You're not even your body. That's what I'm saying. I am
Okay.
not my body.
My
I
body.
am a spiritual being. I'm not my body. That doesn't mean that I have to not take care of my body. That just means I have to understand that who I truly am, the I am that I am, the spiritual me that is my life and my consciousness, is not my body. So these miscreations do not really exist. This recognition is far better protective device than any form or level of confusion because it introduces correction at the level of error. So when you understand it that way, it eliminates the confusion and it eliminates the error. Or people trying to correct at the level of error, well, that's pretty much an impossible thing. You can't teach the ego how to love. You can't fix the error at the level of the error. It is essential to remember that only the mind can create, and that correction belongs at the thought level. So that's what the whole course teaches, is that you have to change your mind to change your life. You have to change your mind to be able to work the miracles. You have to forgive in your mind. You don't have to go and put dollars in the drop box at the church. That's not going to forgive you. You know, you can flagellate yourself with the whip all you like, kneeling in front of the altar. That's not going to do it. You can't change it at the level of the error. You can only change it at the level of the mind, because only the mind has the power of creation. And remember, we keep saying mind, but there's ego mind and there's spirit mind, and we're basically talking spirit mind, okay? So, to amplify an earlier statement, spirit is already perfect. That means you're already perfect. And therefore, you don't even, require correction. Your spiritual self does not require correction. Your spiritual self is completely innocent and pure and powerful. The body does not exist except as a learning device for the mind. We've already gone through that. This learning device is not subject to errors of its own. It can't create because it cannot create. It's obvious then that inducing the mind to give up its miscreations is the only application of creative ability that is truly meaningful. In other words, to give up the ego. Convincing the mind, yourself, in your mind, to give up the ego is the only application of creative ability that is truly meaningful. Everything else is unmeaningful, is illusion. Okay, now that you know the secret of the universe, you can all go home. No, we still got about 45 minutes. I mean, about 15 minutes. Still got about 15 minutes. So are there any questions, comments?
I do define miracle worker.
Yes, a miracle worker is called David Gelman.
Okay.
We are,
Is this,
we,
is
we
it,
are we are the miracle workers, David. You, me, all of us here, we're the miracle workers. And it's not necessarily just students of the course. It doesn't matter what religion you belong to or anything. Anybody who is engaged in trying to live a meaningful, loving existence where they're willing to forgive themselves and others is a miracle worker. They are performing the miracles. Remember, the miracle is forgiveness. So anybody, you could be an atheist. It doesn't matter. You don't have to believe in God at all. You can say, oh, all this Course in Miracles is all mumbo jumbo, but I forgive you. They just became a miracle worker. So
does, in Course in Miracles, is there such a thing as a spiritual guide?
well, yeah, we all have the Holy Spirit is the ultimate spiritual guide.
And that's in each one of us.
Yes. Yes, the Holy Spirit dwells within everybody's mind and is the direct connection, link to the Father Creator. According to the Course. Well, I'm going to take a risk here and go on to paragraph 2. Magic is the mindless or miscreative use of mind. Physical medications are forms of spells. But if you are afraid to use the mind to heal, you should not attempt to do so. The very fact that you are afraid makes your mind vulnerable to miscreation. You are therefore likely to misunderstand any healing that might occur, and because egocentricity and fear usually occur together, you may be unable to accept the real source of the healing. Under these conditions, it is safer for you to rely temporarily on physical healing devices because you cannot misperceive them as your own creations. As long as your sense of vulnerability persists, you should not attempt to perform miracles. And I'll adjust that to say to perform healing miracles. That's what it's talking about here. So basically what it's saying is that in our mind, we have the ability, the possibility of correcting any physical illness. But if we're not that secure in our own spiritual selves to be able to enact that, it's better off that we don't do that in case we become fearful, which would then act as a miscreation because we would create fear. We don't want to create fear. So everybody has to judge for themselves. I know if I'm in that kind of situation, I will do my best to, with the use of prayer and meditation and affirmations and positive thinking, to cure myself. But if I come to realize that, you know what, it isn't clicking, I don't truly understand what the cause, what the source of this illness is in my mind. It's probably unconscious or in my subconscious, and it's not working, then I will go and seek medical attention or take the appropriate medicine or what have you, knowing full well that it's just magic that I'm doing, but knowing that, well, at this point though, I'm going to have to rely on magic for now. Hopefully the next time I'll be more successful in working the creative miracle for myself, the healing miracle for myself through my mind. So, you have to, like I said, you're not the body, but that does not give you license to disuse your body or to abuse your body.
John,
Yes.
and yesterday, I think it was yesterday, the day before, I was at a friend's house, and they were filled with hurt and fear. And I just listened to her go on, and she kept repeating herself. And I finally, after probably half hour, 45 minutes, said to her that, you love this friend that you have split from physically. And I says, let her know that you love her and forgive her, and let's forget what has happened in the past. We both of them felt hurt, and what I saw missing was the love that was still there, but they weren't vulnerable enough to. It's their ego, I guess. And I think she connected with it because she pushed me away. Excuse me, Diane. She felt either hurt by what I said, or she felt that I was right, and she wanted to be right because she felt hurt. So I just let it go.
I just to veer off the course a little bit here, David, it's been my experience that when you're with a person like this who's going on and on, the best thing is not to give any advice at all. The best that you can do is ask questions. Well, why do you feel like this? Why do you think like this? Do you think that that maybe you could find forgiveness to this person? Is that a possibility? You pose them with questions instead of giving advice. That's just my advice to you. And here I am giving you advice.
Well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Just kidding. No, thank you.
You're welcome. All righty, we're pretty much at the end of the hour here. So last call for any questions on what we've covered this evening. Eileen?
I just want to ask, it's not necessarily a question on what we covered this evening, but the book that you guys are working from is A Course in Miracles?
Yes.
Okay, it's just the actual textbook. It's the standard. If I go to Amazon and plug in A Course of Miracles, I'm going to get the right. Your moon or your sun is blocking that.
Well, let me talk and I can address it.
Oh, there it is. Okay, blue and white. Got it.
Let
Oh,
me
there it is.
talk.
Okay, got it.
Wait a minute.
It's peeking in and out. Thank you, John.
Do you see
Thank
it?
you, John.
There it is.
Thank you, John.
There it is. A Course in Miracles. It is on Amazon. It's like $20.
You know what? I think I have it up in Pennsylvania, believe it or not,
Yeah.
but I'm in Florida, so I'm gonna have to get another one.
Find one in the trunk of my car.
There's one in the trunk of David's car. We have,
Well, that helps.
are you in Lake Worth?
Me, I'm in Boca.
Oh, okay.
This pandemic has helped me find you guys,
Well,
so that was a good thing.
all righty then, let us end with a moment of silence, please.